Well, the sequel to Ninja Theory's 2018 cinematic uh, game title, Hellblade: Senua's Saga, has arrived, and for better and worse, it's more of the same. It's easy to want to compare it to other action RPG titles that are out, and many are trying to directly compare it to such things as like the God of War reboots, but that just isn't quite right, as it's not an action RPG. It is a cinematic experience, like I said, for better or for worse. Hellblade 2 seems exactly like the kind of game Hideo Kojima wants to make with his studios at Kojima Productions, and I'm sure his two new titles in works, the Horror 1 OD with Microsoft, as well as the new stealth action thing he's working on with Sony, will be more akin to what this is, and they'll always have their more game type games, such as the forthcoming Death Stranding 2. But it's not about that. This is about Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga. And it's set squarely between movie and video game. Something akin to what we see in the QTE-heavy horror titles, such as those found at the Dark Pictures anthologies from Supermassive Games, without the prompts and those those chase sequences and quick decision-making moments. Multiple paths to choose, which result in their replayability. That's all replaced by visual puzzles about exploring different little arenas, we'll call them, or how to solve those puzzles. Simple puzzles, lining up pieces of the architecture or ground to make symbols, and then one-on-one combat sequences through some gauntlet style fights. However, if you're someone who does enjoy a game that is dripping with story, like a game where presentation is first and foremost, and takes cues from cinema, a game that wants to be a cinematic experience where you can participate within the movie, Senua's Saga is probably for you. First and foremost, this is hands down one of the best looking games released to date. Game, it's technically a video game, so we'll call it a game in this aspect. This is clearly thanks to Ninja Theory's usage of Unreal Engine 5, while fully taking advantage of the different things within that, such as the meta-human systems. This gives a level of fidelity to characters and their animations, as well as matching them to their actors as close as possible, especially through all of the mocap sequences throughout the game, which every instance of animation is a mocapped sequence. This is just outstanding. Thanks to the scanned and translated environments that are absolutely stunning, from the destroyed villages in Part 1, where you first encounter the Draugr, to the underground cave systems looking for the hidden folk, to the green, craggy seaside cliffs. I can't really think of another title, either pure game or another title like this, a cinematic thing to play through, or even a movie itself that looks quite like this. They just don't even come close to creating this look of realism without hitting Uncanny Valley, and Senua's Saga does a great job to avoid that Uncanny Valley. And the same goes for character models, both your standard persons like Senua and the other people she encounters in her group as she travels through the game, to the near inhuman Draugr in their monstrous yet human-like appearance, and to the giants, which are the focal and driving force of the story. Even though they're not human, even though they're otherworldly, they still look real. They are still realistic, and that's what gives them some creepy credence to how creepy they are at times. Things are uneasy because they are believable in how they appear next to Senua and her companions throughout. Of course, when creating such a highly cinematic experience like this, visuals are a portion of it. If you're going to try and create a movie-like experience that you play through yourself, you need to make the sound quality of everything, make sure that's up to par as well, and Ninja Theory had that covered as well. Once again, they brought back their usage of the binaural sound design around the Furies that Senua carries with her, which does create a unique experience when you're playing as her. Headphones definitely recommended, but the voice work, outside of a few instances I noticed, was fantastic. And at worst, good. The pronunciation of Senua's name varied from character to character, and sometimes even the same actor would change it up from time to time, which can get a bit distracting, but as a whole, this was the only poor portion of the performances in Hellblade 2. Ambient sounds emitted from the environment help set each portion of the title to help create the desired mood intended as you progress through it. And then we get to the game portion, and the game portion is ultimately more of the same as that was played in the first title. You control Senua and where she's going within a level, walking or jogging, in some instances running, full-on sprinting. You'll spend most of the time in the game moving from set piece to set piece, with the conversation between Senua and her companions filling the time, providing the story and helping be the driving force behind Senua's decisions and actions throughout. The first title featured numerous puzzles based upon positioning Senua to create images or runes from objects in the world throughout numerous types of larger puzzles, which were kind of a pseudo-platform, and those have been cut back a lot here. Complaints about how numerous they were in the first title were heard, and Ninja Theory cut back on them, only for now people to complain about their lack of them. So really, truth be told, Ninja Theory should have just done what they wanted to with the title. Combat has seen an overhaul as well. In Hellblade, the first one, it was mostly just kind of hack and slash, mashing attack until your enemy was dead. And it was made much more cinematic with this in the sequel. Dodging and positioning is much more important based upon the enemy type and how they attack. Combat sequences are still just one-on-one encounters, however, they usually are numerous enemies in a row of different varieties to help create a more cinematic experience. It's not really difficult by any means, but the different enemy types with varying attacks and strengths and weaknesses will keep you on your toes just enough to not let you realize it was rather hard to actually die in these encounters. Combat feels more like just a gauntlet of one-on-one duels, and that's not a terrible thing. But if you're looking for an extremely action-heavy title of juggling multiple enemies at once, then this really is not it. This is decidedly a cinematic experience that showcases the duels by darkening out the surrounding area, creating a sort of focused tunnel vision of Senua and her current enemy. This creates a more personal encounter with each one. Of course, outside of puzzles and combat, you do have your time spent walking or jogging throughout the environments. There are some hidden locations discovered via a bit of simple platforming or recognizing a landmark type feature, focusing on it, and clearing the way. Behind these portions and puzzles are collectibles that help fill in the history of your current location and the history of the world as a whole, the story of what is happening around you from another perspective, or the background and lore of the area and peoples. Beyond this, once you complete the game, the first time at least, there is some benefit to taking another trip through it. You unlock alternate narrators, where each one of your companions will go into further depth of the struggles that they and their people are facing, how they're interpreting what is happening in the world currently, as well as their thoughts on Senua and the other companions traveling with them. The narrator changes through each portion of the game, which does give some more insight into the world, and if you're looking for that cinematic experience as to why you're playing Hellblade 2, then this is definitely worth giving it another shot through for. Overall, though, Hellblade 2 isn't a long experience, we will call it. The videos online of 4 to 5 hour playthroughs really aren't being completely truthful. If you hold down the run button at all times, skip the story and conversations where you're not slowing down to hear your companions talk to one another, don't take the time to find the story and lore collectibles or listen to their information, or play through a second time, I can definitely see it. If you're just trying to speedrun it, you got it. But as for your average typical playthrough, well, even just a single playthrough, you're looking around 6 to 8 hours. It's about the same as the first title. Of course, a second playthrough with another narrator, you're in for an alternate story, kind of, and stuff can be sped through, so you're adding another quick playthrough with it. What does this mean? Is there value in 6 to 12 hours a game for $50? That's ultimately up for you to decide. If you're looking for something like Red Dead Redemption 2, where there's this ridiculously vast open world full of just repeating activities that you can do over and over and over again that just never end, well, you're probably not going to like this. A repeatable grind of multiplayer game? It is not. Hellblade 2 is a title that finds itself planted in its own unique category of a cinematic experience amongst games in this medium. a movie-like product that you participate in by guiding Senua through it with her companions. Be it the best-looking character models, motion-captured movements and actions, best-looking environments available, all verging on what a tech demo is and should be, like was advertised by Epic Games with that Matrix demo a couple of years ago. Ultimately, if you find value in the story and the journey that story can take you on within any medium, perhaps this title is something for you to look into. You're getting anywhere from $5 to $10 an hour worth of value. Of course, you can always revisit and replay it more than once if you so choose. Like a lot of people will go back and read a book a second time or a third time or rewatch a movie or a series or anything like that. But as for me, that's not something I typically do with story-driven games or content or anything. I rarely reread a book. The only book I'll actively reread are a couple Michael Crichton titles and Rainbow Six from Tom Clancy. Games, the only games I really actively replay are from the Seiken Densetsu series, and that's just because it was a series that had a profound effect upon me as I grew up. As for this, while I did greatly enjoy it, I probably won't revisit it outside of that second time I played through it for the alternate narrators, which I wouldn't have even known if I didn't look for it when it popped up. But it's up to you. Ultimately, like I said, it's a fantastic pace breaker from the typical product that is pushed to us by developers and publishers. Ninja Theory was given the green light to do this story-based title and cinematic experience, and they ran with it and delivered it. It is also on Games Pass, so if that's something you are subscribed to, you can pseudo-forego that $50 entry point. For those that don't have it, it is available on Steam or the Xbox PC app for $50. While it was a fantastic experience and I enjoyed my time, I don't know if I would have paid $50 to play through it. I don't know if I would have enjoyed it like I did if I had known I had dropped $50 on this, because I do want a decent amount of value out of it, and just story content to me is not necessarily the value I'm looking for in a title. The other things, like there's a bunch of other things I can do for $50, and playing through a cinematic story-driven game might not be the first on my list, but at the price of Games Pass subscription, which I do have to play various titles with my wife when she's on her console, it was definitely worth it, and it was definitely worth the time I took to play through it. That's one thing that it was absolutely worth. It was absolutely worth the 9 hours I put into it to get through the title and the second narration of the game as well. It wasn't hard, it wasn't difficult, it was entertaining, it was interesting, and it was a well thought out world. If you think you can get $50 worth of entertainment out of this, then by all means go ahead and grab it. If you're buying movie tickets and going and seeing movies in theaters, you're gonna love this. It's extremely cinematic. But if you're unsure, definitely just wait for a deal, wait for a sale. Go play the first title. The first title's been cheap as dog do for a long time now. It's been out for 5 years. See if a second title where it's much more polished, it looks much better, and everything has just been amplified 100-fold. See if that's something you'd be interested to. At worst, go find a Games Pass trial, and like a 2 or 3 day Games Pass trial, and just play it. Play it through on that time. It's definitely worth that. Anyways, if you're looking for a cinematic experience, definitely check it out. If you have no qualms with knowing you're getting more of a movie than a just straight up video game, but you're getting something ultimately that is set perfectly between movie and video game, you're not going to be disappointed. And for that, I think Ninja Theory did a fantastic job. They have a new project that has been approved from Microsoft, so we'll see if it's another title like this. Are they going to continue Senua's story? Are they going to create another cinematic title? Or are they going to go back to their roots, like with Devil May Cry? Who knows? We'll find out. Anyways, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching.